All right, we are live. So, welcome, Chris, to the News with Obi. And I am going to play a little bit of an introduction, just like an introduction to the show about the News with Obi, and we'll dive into the show.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, so I think we have, as people are coming in, Chris, I'm gonna ask you to, well, before I start talking, well, first of all, welcome. Welcome to the News with Obi. My name is Obi Mwobe, and my platform here is called the News with Obi, where we talk about everything politics, everything current affairs, things happening in our local community and around the world. On this show, you don't need to censor yourself as far as how you feel. It's okay to really dive in and talk politics. But before we dive in to today's show, which is about COVID-19, the road to economic recovery, I want to address what's been happening in the news in the last few days, right? So, Chris, let's talk about emotions are running high for a lot of people. And I want to talk about the video that we've been seeing circulating on George Floyd that literally got murdered in broad daylight. I avoided watching it yesterday because I had to meet up with a friend that had just recovered from COVID-19. So I really didn't want to ruin that moment. So I'm like, okay, let me get into it later today, which I did this morning. And I couldn't believe what I was watching. Chris, talk to us a little bit about that, how you're feeling about all of that.
Yes. Well, Obi, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. I've been a big fan for the past 14 years.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
But yeah, it's been a rough time, for anyone who, with any atom of empathy of human decency in general. But of course, even more for people like you or I who basically are having our color criminalized, basically, on a daily basis. And I'm a parent of a young son, about to turn 18.
Yeah.
Big, strong, bold. I don't know how, and to see that happen to a grown man who was not being a threat in any way.
Yeah.
It hits us from so many angles. I mean, it hits me, of course, personally, because like I said, I have children. I have children that look like adults.
Yeah.
But it hits us because it's us too much. It's been over and over again for the past how many years? I when I say when I say over and over again for the last how many years, I just mean because of this new age with technology and social media.
Right. And we're able to record it now,
But because it's always happened.
Right.
It's always been happening.
Yeah.
And now people are seeing it more, and it hurts to see the reaction a lot of people have to these incidents, where the initial reaction is, oh, I'm sure there's something more to it. Let's wait until we hear the full story. Well, that's what we all would like to
Yeah.
happen in every single situation. If the police were waiting until they actually analyzed the situation correctly, or saw the
Yeah.
full picture, or even cared about the full picture,
Mhm.
more than half of those deaths would never happen.
Yeah. But what are the, I mean, I know a situation like this, some investigation has to happen, but what else is there to investigate? The video shows it all. The police officer that had his knee on his neck looked like he was enjoying it, like he was having a field day.
Absolutely, there is nothing to investigate. It's almost like there is all of a sudden now this bloodthirst out there.
Yeah.
I you know what it felt like to me looking at him doing that. It felt like he felt like he just earned something. He just did something.
Yeah, yeah,
It's almost like now he has a badge of honor. Even if they get fired from the police department, etc., in their communities,
yeah,
some people are going to hail those people as heroes.
yeah.
Their GoFundMe accounts will be full.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
It's like the Ku Klux Klan wearing blue, wearing uniforms.
they are going to be fully funded because people are going to raise money for their families because maybe they are not earning. Raise money for their lawsuits.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is validating and encouraging and creating copycat behavior. We saw the Ahmaud Arbery incident in Georgia, and even though those weren't cops, it's still the same incident. These are people. The people have been emboldened.
Yeah.
They know that they feel there are no consequences, and went from the highest office in the land all the way down.
Yeah.
They keep getting encouragement.
And speaking of people being emboldened, look at Amy Cooper. I mean, thankfully the man was recording it, and I guess to her, feeling entitled, she felt, "How dare you tell me what to do?" Right? And I can't even believe that happens in New York. I've been to Central Park a few times to go jog. Like, are you kidding me?
The Amy Cooper incident highlights, I think, another part of this whole dynamic of being criminalized while Black that I think some people sleep on sometimes, and that's the liberal, because by all accounts, he's openly liberal, etc., has liberal values, etc., etc., etc. That, I'm sorry, but that doesn't change anything. I prefer my prejudice in my face, and I can see it coming about.
Right.
I don't need I don't need that ally or friend that would smile in front of me, still invite me for dinner.
Right.
Tell people, oh, I've got a friend, he's African American as well, maybe probably say something like he's not like the others, etc. But at the end of the day, those people like Amy Cooper could be more dangerous because our guard is down.
Yeah.
We get our guard down because every day we walk out the door, we put on our mask.
Right.
Because we have to look, act, talk.
You gotta put it on literally now.
literally put on a mask now just to be able to navigate that world without being seen as hostile. People are quick to be afraid of us. And what she did was intentional. She might not have been, it might have been subliminal, but it was intentional. Her instinctual reaction was, she said it openly, if I call the cops and tell them a Black man, an African American man is threatening me, that was the threat that what's going to happen. So back off. That's basically what she was referring to. And it happens. It happens in more subtle ways than in with places of work, etc. I was at the grocery store the other day, and a kid was selling candy in front of the store, and just the way two different people talk to him would tell you how he's perceived. One lady was ready to call the authorities, and boy, it looked like he was raising money for a good cause, etc.
Right.
Was inconveniencing. The store employee said he was okay. And he was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, we can't. There's so many incidences that we personally deal with on a day-to-day basis, and we can talk about this all day because unfortunately, this is not going to stop anytime soon, and we should not be desensitized to it or sensitized to it. Like, we have to keep talking about it. So I know, Chris, you and I can sit and talk about this all day, but I really want to dive into also today's topic, which is COVID-19, the road to economic recovery. I know I've been looking forward to this particular topic today because I want to know what the road to economic recovery will look like for regular folks like me, so moving forward, everybody's opening up, job is about to open back up. What does that really mean? What are the implications? So first of all, I want to tell our guests, welcome again, everybody. My name is Obi. This is the News with Obi. If you have any comments, please type it in the comment section. I'm sure Chris would like to read your comments and address any questions that you have. Chris has a 16-year experience as a successful private banker and relationship manager. He's translated his client management and hard-end project management skills to the real estate sector. He covers residential, multifamily, commercial, value-added, and distressed properties and property management. I can read Chris's bio all day. It's a robust bio, but I'm sure you read his bio when I posted it a few days ago. So, Chris, tell us how bad this damage is. The COVID-19 damage to the economy. How bad is it really?
Well, it is definitely unprecedented. The coronavirus pandemic so far, as we know, has killed hundreds of thousands of people, crashed stock markets all over the world,
right,
and driven millions of people to claim, unemployment benefits, or countries to provide some kind of palliative measures to their populations.
Right.
Especially here in the US, where, I think that we're probably less used to this amount of disruption than some other countries. And this is a very nuanced question, about how bad is the damage to the economy by COVID-19. We don't know yet, but I can tell you what we do know. And I think, first of all, it has seriously dented the veneer of that superpower mentality that the US has, the United States has enjoyed for decades, for years and years and years. Because as the world continues to see upfront and personal the failures in the measures to protect citizens, communities, the economy,
right,
and most recently the abdication of responsibility of the federal government in deference to states. I'm just using local examples here in the US because we see that every day. Which I personally thought sounded more like a cover-up than any kind of strategy towards navigating the.
What sounded more like a cover-up?
The fact that the fact that the power has been deferred to the states to direct their response to COVID-19. I think there should be a clear-cut national strategy, one voice, one strategy for all states, and then maybe as they start coming off restrictions, maybe you can now go state by state because it's not apples to apples, right?
Right.
But it seemed like the reasoning for doing that wasn't really because states, state right. The argument I had was state rights and different, states are different geographically, people, how people transition in and out, travel in and out, infection rates. I get that, but it seemed more like an easy way for the federal government to say later on, when it's time to pay the piper, that that wasn't our call.
I mean, speaking of that, so what is the goal of public policy during a pandemic like COVID-19?
Public policy is everything. Public policy. I had this link I meant to share, but I didn't copy it correctly. But it was on the IMF side. The IMF has this great tool out there that actually probably answers this question a lot better than I ever could, where they break down every country and update you every 5 days on basically everything from infection rates, monetary policy, fiscal policy, reopening, everything. So it breaks down basically the government's policy, what's working, what's not,
right,
and what they should be. But back to your question, in my opinion, the primary goal of public policy should be to minimize the damage to communities and the economy as a whole.
Do you think the U.S. has done that properly?
Not in the least.
Yeah. And how does that trickle down? Like whose responsibility is it at this point? Are we talking from the federal government or the local government? The state is really where it starts.
It is extremely dysfunctional because I hear people complaining about the government response, their state governor's response, the federal government's response, but yet openly flaunting every guideline and eager to push the envelope when it comes to reopening or restarting without following the science. Because when it comes to establishing public policy, you really have to have preventative prophylactic measures to avoid any future systemic breakdowns. Obviously, we didn't, or we did, or as most
We
analysts,
were, we weren't
we did.
adequately prepared for it.
Yes, we did have them in place, but then weren't prepared for them. Either by decimating those departments, underfunding them, or firing experts, who knows
Yeah.
what the truth is at this point. But public policy has to be about the ability of a nation to respond, at least in the short term, to especially short term, with measures that keep all people safe and can keep the economy afloat at the same time. That's why sometimes I prefer referring to this crisis as a health and economic crisis than a pandemic, because it's
Right. And now also added to it a racism crisis as well, which has been ongoing. Now, speaking of, public policy and the government not really having that in place, I know the federal government, they've slashed interest rates and they've injected trillions of dollars into the economy, lent money to businesses that weren't even supposed to access those small business loans. If things don't get better, is there more that the federal government can and should do?
to deal with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there is a ton more that the federal government can do.
Okay.
Whether or not the appetite to do it is there, I don't think it is.
Mm.
And I think that I think everybody would agree there's more they can do and should do. But when you've spent so many decades with having different political ideologies that totally decimate the infrastructure of federal government, of a more community-based response to anything, whether it's health, economic, education, etc.
Mm-hmm.
This whole impression that once you start doing anything for the people in general, it's socialism. But
Right.
but look at how fast we bail out Wall Street each time. That's
Exactly.
that's basically
Right.
socialism.
Yeah.
So when it comes to ability, we've
Yeah.
seen that the government has the ability. We've seen it, but it's just that it's always pointed in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Do you foresee the government going to a negative interest rate as we continue to deal with the pandemic? Because I know Trump kind of mentioned it, but it was just a mention and that was it. Nothing else was said about that. So do you foresee that happening?
It's one of my favorite things to talk about, negative interest rate. I'm gonna answer this one by pulling back just a little bit.
Okay.
The financial crisis in 2008 to 2009,
Mm-hmm.
global financial crisis. One of the responses back then was, qualitative easing by the central bank, and qualitative easing basically is fancy term for printing money. Like our central banks have been doing like crazy nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And but being that we've gone through that experience in some way, the US did not really follow some countries like Japan and some other Eurozone countries in going fully down to a 0% rate, a zero interest rate, a negative rate environment, all the way to a negative rate environment, which those countries did. And
those countries did now the pandemic during the pandemic.
Of course,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Of course, those countries have already done it before, and if they try to ease out of it, the pandemic has probably sent them back there.
Right.
But my point is, I don't necessarily think it worked.
You don't think having a negative interest rate will work?
I don't think the negative interest rate is a solution. But first of all, I don't know if people realize it. We are technically there already.
Right. Right.
The Fed rate right now is 0%. It reads 0% to 0.25, to a quarter percent, which is basically at zero.
Yeah.
So borrowing is nothing. So, but I just want to understand this. I may not be that much of an expert, but I don't see how banks will continue lending or supporting clients if there's a negative rate environment, because that means the banks are paying
you to borrow money from them.
They are paying money to fund, to fund whether it's your credit card, business cash flow, your new car. America finances everything.
Right.
Not a cash-based economy like some countries are. Some countries have wonderful savings rates. We have improved tremendously.
Yeah, but mostly your credit and the financing is really what helps here, how it functions.
Is what helps everything function. So imagine a negative rate environment. the banks are, how eager are the banks going to be to,
Yeah.
to provide their services without, um,
Any kind of interest rate.
exactly, if they have to pay you to do it. So no,
Yeah.
I mean that's my basic layman's argument there. You
Yeah.
know,
So
I,
I mean, speaking of interest rate and like for instance, automakers. So we know that with COVID-19 for automakers, the way they assemble, the assembly line is definitely going to change. If you had two people assembling, let me say, a steering wheel,
Mhm,
that has to change to one
absolutely.
person. So um, this really means reorganizing everything. How hard has the automobile industry been hit during this pandemic? Interest rate, all of that.
Um, Rate wise, I think that from what I hear, the smart ones, have basically used up most of their lines of credit. Let me rephrase that. Not used their lines of credits. Those that had credit facilities have probably moved a lot of their credit facilities to cash, which I think
Okay.
is a smart move because you don't know if how much liquidity is going to continue to be out there
Yeah.
available to pull from. But I live in in Southeast Michigan, quite close to Detroit. So this is auto industry country.
Right.
I know a ton of people who work in the automobile industry, and I think May 4th or so was
Hmm.
most of the auto companies started reopening.
Okay.
And I always hear people caution me, don't say the plants haven't fully opened. The companies are reopening and slowly rolling out people into plants, which some have done, like Ford, etc., have had lines open. But we've already seen people get infected
Right.
during the reopening, and plants shut down, and lines have to be shut down again and sanitized, and people contact tracing, etc. So it seems like whatever they're doing obviously is still not working, but I guess in their defense, it's a trial and error period. So I'll give them that much benefit of the doubt. But in general, the process cannot be like flipping a switch. It's gonna have
Be a gradual process and trial and error.
take time for everyone to get used to. As I hear that all the plants have been restructured, redesigned layouts to
Right.
give spacing. Common areas like bathrooms and cafeterias have been cordoned off to create more individualized spacing. Great, but it'll take time for people not only to get used to that process at the plant,
Yeah.
but people just to get over their fear of getting infected in general. I talked to a couple of people I know personally who work on lines, and the story is the same. They are optimistic, but the truth is they are not seeing most of the um basically most of the practices that their employers said, most of the protections their employers said they were put in place,
Not being applied.
they're not being applied fully. Yeah, everything is hodgepodge. And
Right.
then the question is, as it gets warmer, those that have to wear full PPE, those that even have PPE to wear,
Yeah. Yeah.
how,
That would be tough.
how are you going to work on an assembly line in the
Yeah.
summer with
I know.
PPE?
With PPE on. That's gonna be rough. That's
There's, I could bring up so many issues, but
yeah.
then that's the line worker you're looking at, right? You can look at it from that aspect, but the other challenge is is that supply chain as a whole for everything is decimated. It's buckling. The supply chain all over the world, all over the country is upside down.
Yeah.
People freaked out and bought a ton of toilet paper, and because but that wasn't the problem.
Yeah.
The supply chain is there. All they did was overstress the supply chain. Toilet
Exactly.
paper is not scarce. That's all they did was overstress the chain. But on the flip side, when you look at people like the auto industry, what's going to happen when bless you? What's going to happen when the auto industry when a auto manufacturer has to order from a parts supplier, and that parts supplier's plant is shut down? What happens?
And that's likely to happen. If they're ordering from China, that's definitely most likely to happen.
It happened recently when there was just a tornado in, was it Missouri?
Yeah.
And it wasn't, so not even necessarily COVID related, but that took down plants, and it I think it affected Chrysler and Ford directly. but I can foresee that happening. So there are so many, there are these weaknesses in the system that I think we're going to have reoccurring breakdowns, shutdowns in a lot of parts of the economy, like the auto industry,
Yeah.
and that's where the uncertainty is. Funny enough, I looked at some of those recent sales numbers, and they weren't as bad as predicted. So
Okay. Okay.
in the market.
That's definitely good. So, I mean, I know a question a lot of people have. I know I definitely have is, how are we going to bounce back from this? What does recovering from COVID-19 economically mean for the regular folk? And I know analysts have been discussing different shapes of recovery. They have the Z shape, the V shape, the U shape. All those shapes don't mean anything to me because I'm not like a finance
Nike
person.
swoosh.
Exactly, the Nike shape, all of those. Can you break that down for us? I mean, tell us what those shapes mean and what shape is most likely, the least likely to be optimistic, and why, and what the one that is really the one that we should be looking out for. So if we have analysts saying this shape, we know that things are good.
Well, I would give anything for a crystal ball right now, but but no doubt, the coronavirus has pushed us knee deep into a recession automatically, everybody, and it's relative across the board. This is nothing. This is not a situation of where one region or one socioeconomic um, strata is insulated one way or the other. But to answer your question directly, that the most common the most common shapes we see out there when we have, I'm sure you guys have watched on YouTube or those guys on Bloomberg or whatever,
Right, the money market channels.
on charts. But
Yeah.
the best kind of recession for me is a V-shaped recession, basically. That's basically a sharp drop,
Okay.
sharp rebound. Bottom line.
I have a graph for that. Does that a V-shaped recession? Okay.
That is what everybody prays for, hopes for.
Okay.
So sadly, that is not going to be the case.
Okay. So why is that not going to be the case, and why is a V-shaped recession recovery much better?
Oh, because like I said, it's easy in, easy out. It's quickly in, quick out.
Okay.
You can't really avoid recessions. Recessions happen literally, especially in the US market, literally like clockwork every decade, every 10 years, 10, 11 years. Like
Okay.
there are
Yeah.
different kinds of recessions, but there's always a recession. And the V-shaped recession, of course, usually is a particular incident that pushes an economy into a recession, and there's a quick recovery. But this is totally different. We're not dealing with 2008, where it was the financial crisis and housing and derivatives. We had our enemy right there.
Right. This is the unseen enemy. We have no solution to this one yet.
In 2002, we had the dot-com crisis. That took 3 years to.
And were those a V-shaped recession?
That was probably more of a U-shaped recession. It was both the 2002 and 2009 were probably U-shaped recessions. The 2009 one probably had a lot of
A lot of ups and downs.
right there, bumps right there during its
So you mentioned the U-shape. I'm going to put that up. What is a U-shaped recovery?
A U-shaped recession is where you have a longer downturn. So basically, you're in the throes, which is the downward turn for a longer period of time. But there is a slow, steady recovery. You do see the recovery, and you see. So a lot of times it's predicated by a sharp drop and a slow, steady climb out of it. So I think most recently our most recent global financial crisis was probably a lot similar to that.
Okay. So I know we also have the W shape. Is that a bad one, or should we?
It's a double dip recession. So the W shape is just a double dip recession. I think we're gonna see some. So here's where I start to get this, probably my best case scenario for this pandemic.
Is the W shape?
Yeah, this would be my best case scenario. If I am hoping or wishing for for any version of the various shapes we've discussed so far, it
Yeah.
will be the W shape, because this is a very deep, serious crisis, and with the right policies and planning,
Hmm.
we'd be able to come out. But as with things like second wave infections and a lot of unknowns, you know,
Right. Okay. So that would be
I
the dip
think might
coming
be a
out.
second dip. Yeah, there might be a second shallower dip following the first, following a brief recovery.
Okay. And the L-shaped recovery, is that even good to look at? What is that?
The L-shaped recovery is a very strong possibility. I hope and wish that's not what it is, but if we continue to fail with coming together, see, just to backtrack a little, collaboration is key right now. If
Collaboration with other countries, with other states, what exactly?
all of the above, internal, parastatal departments, whether it's like, I'm going to give you an example of like Treasury and the federal government right now, which is very rare collaboration happening right now,
Hmm.
help us recover. But everywhere, whether it's country to country, whether it is from sector to sector, community to community, there has to be a lot more collaboration right now to get all of us out of this mess. If people are going to stay in this highly competitive mode, stay in me first mode, like we've begun to see in a lot of areas of our economy, and from a lot of posturing from the U.S. perspective so far, I think that's very dangerous and will lead to an L-shaped recession.
An L-shaped
It'll
recession.
take us a long time to come out of that. But on the flip side, like I said, not to sound all doom and gloom, we are seeing some. I'm noticing some unprecedented collaboration, in my opinion. I don't know how long it'll last, but
Mhm.
if most people don't realize that we're getting a double whammy right now from we're getting a monetary policy solutions and fiscal policy solutions. So basically, we have the U.S. the Fed, the Federal Reserve, you
Okay.
know, discounting rates like
Right.
cost, going to practically a zero rate environment, increasing the money supply, and targeting inflation, etc., which I think they've done.
Let's say the economy doesn't get back to normal. Then what? What happens? What advice do you have for small businesses, individuals, freelancers? I mean, what happens? Where does that leave us?
Well, you have to, first of all, for my fellow small business owners, freelancers, and self-employed people out there, my best advice is adapt or die. Basically, you
Is
have
what?
to adapt or die.
Okay.
You
Okay.
have to adapt. You said something. In your question, you said, "What about going back to normal?" There is no going back to normal.
Right.
We're not going back to normal. For
This is the normal we are gonna be known for. That's it.
there is no way we're going back to a less virtual based economy. We've already we've always had the ability to do that. We,
Yeah.
people are just creatures of, people are just creatures of habit. Nobody wanted to change. We always had the technology, the ability to do what the coronavirus is forcing most people to do, which is work more from home, create more virtual means of doing business,
Yeah.
less face contact, less travel, less meetings, you
Yeah.
know. So you have to innovate. You have to be adaptable. You have to be able to figure out and see where things are going.
I mean, for you soccer fans, there's not going to be any live soccer, any live sporting events anytime soon.
Well, a lot of, these are multi-billion, trillion-dollar industries. Believe me, they're not going to want to sit on the sidelines. Already, we've seen, the German league, the Bundesliga is open. Here in the US, we hear the
Is social distancing in the arena, or there are no people in the arena?
Yeah, I know people are in there, and I tried watching it. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's a terrible product. I'm sorry.
It's yeah, no. There's something about
I would
what
rather not watch.
I hear you.
Watch. So I don't see what if now that's their solution. People tell me, "Oh, we are so desperate, we'll do it, we'll watch it." I'm like, wait until you see what it's like. I don't really think Americans have experienced watching games in empty stadiums. I mean, soccer, there are always a lot of riots and people getting banned, so we've seen it happen, and it's terrible. It's a terrible product. But I think it's actually an analogy for a lot of things that are going to happen going forward in different sectors and different industries.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like we're gonna be hearing echoes for a while.
Wow, that's it's gonna be. I feel bad for school kids. Some of these school kids, they need that contact with their friends. They're feeling depressed. As for me, as an adult, I've been working for a very long time. If they want, they can be shut down for as long as they need to. I'm cool, but it's not looking good from what we all can see.
Well, I don't really want to sound all doom and gloom. Really, I've seen so many people who have actually had a boom during the COVID-19, not on purpose, but because the COVID-19 either pushed more business their way.
Are you talking about Mr. Amazon? He's the only one that I know that had a boom.
There's a lot of people out there. There are a lot of industries that people are surprisingly realizing that okay, all of a sudden we become essential. Everybody, we become an essential need. But most of us just took them for granted, and now all of a sudden they're essential. They probably were in high-paying areas before or high-earning areas, but there's a lot of self-employed people out there that still are finding a lot of work.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Is helping. So I don't want to sound too negative. I don't know most of, especially my self-employed people, my small businesses, to look out there at where the need is, not where the wants. We were a very consumer-based society.
Yeah.
And people might be looking at it that we've lost a lot. I think most of the things we've lost so far and we're trying to recover are basically wants. Things that are essential and things that are necessary. People still purchasing and people have more buying power.
And this is a good time to reinvent yourself.
Exactly.
Look at things that, like you said, people want, and if that it's not working for you, like Cuomo said, get a job as an essential worker.
Yeah. Cheers to Governor Cuomo, is one of my heroes. But you're right. Don't spend your time and your resources trying to get back to business as usual. Instead, why don't you use this opportunity to position yourself for the new business culture that faces us? As we slowly come out of this crisis. Yeah. That is the simplest. It might seem like simple advice, but that's the best advice I can give right now.
Yeah. And any people to people type of job where you had to it's probably not it right now. Not probably, it's not it.
It's weird because I think we're going to find a lot of people are going to try and rush back to try and be normal, and I think the coronavirus would. That's probably when we're going to start getting hit by second waves. And then I think you're going to have another reset of people's mindset. And then when as people go back to interacting fully business wise, the culture is going to be hard. Our instinct is to shake hands, even hug people we've with for a long time. I haven't seen in a while. Abusive. We want to share a meal. How do you share a meal face to face? If you feel something might be asymptomatic.
Going to a restaurant. I saw a video the other day about how in a restaurant, just a little bit of a cough if somebody had the virus, it can spread on somebody's food, on somebody's utensils, and you can't see it, right? So
have you seen the comparison between European restaurants open and Florida, some of the U.S. states that have opened?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, you would. Yeah. Basically, it's. I think I don't know what country that was in Europe, but it was the clip I saw was in the restaurant. The waiter doesn't even put anything on your table. The waiters come out, gloves, masks. People have masks as they're sitting, and they bring your stuff to the table, and you take everything of yours off the tray, no contact, yourself, place it on the table yourself, and then wait for the waiter to leave before you pull your mask down and start to eat.
What? You might as well stay home then. Eat at Oh,
but those are I think even some countries in Southeast Asia, whether it's Singapore, Korea, as well as some places in Europe, have adopted those guidelines. But of course, Americans, we love our freedom, so
yeah,
everything is
yeah.
back to normal.
And I know in South Korea, nightclubs and bars have been shut down indefinitely. Um, so anybody saying, okay, churches need to reopen, they can social distance, they don't understand how fast this thing travels, So, yeah, Chris, I don't want to keep you long, and I don't want to keep the guests on too long, but I want to thank you for taking time out to come on tonight. When I came up with this topic, I was looking for a guest that could actually potentially fit the bill to be on this show. I'm like, yes, Chris is the one, and I'm glad you obliged and you're on the show. Thank you so much. Thank you for your expertise, everything that you do with the real estate market, just all around, man. And also, your wife is my bestie. I call her my bestie in my head. So
She loves you too. Thank you, Obi. Hey,
thank you.
Thank you for having. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you guys for the people that tuned in. I wasn't able to see everybody, but thank you guys for tuning in. And I look forward to having another show with you on a different topic very soon, Chris.
Sounds good. See you
All
later.
right. Thank you. Take care. Bye.